My name is Wren Caldwell. I'm 62 years old, and until recently, my title was Senior Vice President of Port Operations for the Western Seaboard. It sounds fancy, I know, but right now, I'm just a widow learning how to breathe again without the man I loved walking beside me. People assume that makes me fragile, lonely, or easy to overlook. They assume wrong. I was in my home office that Tuesday afternoon, finishing a call with the harbor team about a crane malfunction during a cargo unload. A shipping delay can cost millions. I kept my voice steady, guided each person through what needed to be done, and ended the call with a quiet, confident, "We've got this." Then the room fell silent again, as if the ocean wind itself had been holding its breath. My phone lit up. It was my son, Noah. "Mom, are you free for dinner tonight? Tessa's parents want to meet you. We booked Vargas House. 7 p.m. Vargas House. Waterfront fine dining. Leather menus and crystal glasses. The kind of place where people with money like to prove it." Before I could answer, another message appeared. "Please, keep things simple tonight. They don't really understand everything. You know what I mean? I don't want them to think you're showing me up. They care a lot about appearances." I stared at his words, reading between every insecure line. Please don't make me look bad. He had never said it out loud, but I had heard it before. In sighs, in glances, in the way he tensed when I spoke about work. He married into a family obsessed with status, and somehow my success made him feel small. I typed back, "Of course. Simple." I set my phone down, then gently pinched the bridge of my nose. I raised this boy to be kind, to work with his hands if needed and his heart always. I never wanted money to become a weapon in his marriage or a mirror of his worth. Yet here he was, terrified that I might be too much. I whispered to the photo frame on my desk. My husband, Captain Henry Caldwell, smiling on the deck of his ship in his crisp navy whites. Can you believe this, love? He never cared whether people approved of us. We built our life quietly, choosing generosity over flash, respect over showing off. The foundation we created together still pays for meals and housing support for veterans and harbor workers. But hardly anyone knows our name behind it. We always believed impact matters more than applause. Maybe tonight, I told myself, silence could teach something applause never could. My hand reached for the small velvet box in my drawer. Inside was Henry's wedding ring, threaded onto a simple leather cord. I wore it around my neck on days when courage needed to be closer to my pulse. Tonight felt like one of those days. I stood up and walked to the living room window. The harbor stretched before me, cranes like steel giants, ships moving slowly across shimmering water. This was my world. Yet I lived quietly, in a cozy two-bedroom townhouse with a garden out back. People see the house and think they know everything. But quiet doesn't mean small. Simple doesn't mean weak. And silence? Silence is the most misunderstood form of power. As I glanced again at the message from Noah, something shifted inside me. A decision formed. I would go as the version of myself they assumed I was. A sweet widow with a frayed purse, grateful someone remembered to invite her to dinner. I would let them draw their own conclusions. Then I would let the truth speak for itself, at the right time. Suddenly, another notification popped up. My banker, fraud alert. Unusual spending flagged on founder's card account. Contact advised. I smiled. Perfect timing. The life they would judge me for might just become the mirror they needed to look into. Before I left the office, I sent a short message to my best friend and CFO, Jade. Plan M on standby tonight. She replied instantly with one word, always. On my hallway table sat my canvas wallet. It looked like it had survived 100 grocery store checkouts and not a single investor meeting. I swapped out my usual leather clutch for it, then tucked away every shiny indication of success until only modesty remained. Black knit dress, years old. Flats instead of heels. Hair pinned in a simple twist. Wedding ring on the cord around my neck, hidden under fabric but warm against my skin. I took a slow breath. In the mirror, I looked like any aging widow trying her best not to fade into the background. That was exactly what I needed them to think. My phone buzzed again. Noah. Thanks, Mom. Really. I typed back, see you soon. If you're watching this, let me ask you something. When people think they know your value from your clothes or your wallet, do you ever feel the urge to smile quietly? Because you know something they don't? That's why I didn't argue with my son. I didn't need to. Some lessons only unfold when there's something at stake. And tonight, it wouldn't be my dignity on the line. It would be theirs. I slipped on my coat and stepped outside. A soft breeze rustled the trees. The evening air smelled like salt water and possibility. My driver, Hank, waited by the car, tipping his cap. You ready, Miss Wren? He asked. More than ready, I said. He opened the door for me, and I took one last look at the light spilling from my windows. My husband used to say that every ordinary Tuesday could be a test life sets in front of you, to see if you still remember who you are. Tonight, I would remember, and so would they. I didn't go there to boast or to shame anyone. I went because my son needed to see what real pride looked like. He needed to learn that dignity doesn't come from gold watches or reserved parking. It comes from how you treat the person sitting at the end of your table. He invited me to dinner with his wife's family. They joked about poor people who don't understand money. I stayed quiet. And later, someone would walk over, hug me, and say, "Your table is always reserved, ma'am." The room would freeze, but for now, I simply folded my hands in my lap as the car pulled away from the curb, the city lights reflecting in the windows like scattered diamonds across the bay. I was going to a dinner where I would be underestimated from the moment I walked in, and I was perfectly fine with that, because the most powerful person in the room is rarely the loudest. The city rolled past my window as we drove toward Vargas House, streetlights flickering over the hood like beads on a rosary. I pressed my fingers to the thin fabric of my dress. It was comfortable, familiar, a little faded in the sleeves. The kind of dress no one would ever photograph. Good. Tonight wasn't about being seen. Tonight was about watching. Hank kept the drive smooth, respectful. He had been with our family for years, but no one outside the harbor circle knew that. To strangers, he looked like a regular car service driver. I liked that. We understood the value of blending in. You sure about this? He asked quietly, eyes on the road. I'm sure, I said. The leather cord around my neck warmed under my touch. Some people need to reveal themselves before they can be helped. He nodded, saying nothing more. That was his way. Wisdom spoken in silence. When we stopped at an intersection, I glanced again at my bag resting beside me. Canvas, off-white, edges frayed. Inside, a few bills, my phone, and my ID. I had left every platinum card, every executive badge, and every polished piece of jewelry at home. Humility wasn't a costume for me, but tonight, it was also a shield. Traffic slowed in the downtown district. Towering banks and designer boutiques cast their reflections across the windshield. All the glossy symbols of wealth lined up in a row, like trophies in a glass case. People admired what glittered. They rarely looked deeper. But depth is where truth lives. We reached the waterfront. The glow of Vargas House shimmered ahead, a lighthouse of luxury calling the privileged to shore. Its massive glass facade made it impossible for anyone to forget how expensive the view was. The kind of place where appearances paid the bill. Hank parked a short distance away so I could walk the last block. The heels clicking on stone, the entrance lights shining just right. Tessa's parents lived for those details. I imagined them rehearsing their impression of themselves before stepping out of their car, polishing their own reflections. "Text if you need me early," Hank said as he got out to open my door. "I will." I gave him a grateful smile. "Thank you." He touched his cap, then watched to ensure I made it safely to the sidewalk before rolling away. I took a steady breath. Salt air brushed the side of my face, cooling my nerves. The harbor always reminded me of my husband. I pictured him leaning against the railing, telling me stories of sailors who mistook calm water for weakness. "Stillness is the ocean planning its next move," he would say. I felt that truth inside my bones tonight. I passed by couples in shimmering clothing and men in tailored suits stepping out of black cars. Their shoes looked expensive enough to pay someone's rent. No one gave me a second glance. The knit dress did its job. A man brushed past me, holding the door open for a younger woman dripping diamonds. He didn't even notice me behind them. Perfect. Inside, the scent of roasted garlic and rosemary wrapped around me like a warm blanket. A hostess glanced up. Her professional smile faltered for half a second as she took me in, calculating where a woman dressed like me should sit. A nod, a sticky note of judgment applied with quiet politeness. "Reservation for Caldwell," I said softly. She checked the screen, then her demeanor shifted. Something flickered behind her eyes. Confusion? Recognition? I couldn't tell. Before she could speak, a waiter gestured toward the back of the room. "They're waiting for you," he said. Of course they were. My table sat tucked into the shadows, farthest from the windows overlooking the bay, far enough that the glow from the dining room chandeliers barely reached the edge, the kind of spot reserved for those who should be grateful simply to exist in the same space as others. Noah stood as I approached, giving me a quick hug. He looked handsome in his blazer, but nervous in the eyes. Tessa smiled, though it didn't quite reach her cheeks. Her mother and father stayed seated, barely glancing up from their menus. "We already ordered wine," Victor said, swirling his glass like the world revolved with the motion of his wrist. "I hope you don't mind red. It's a 98, very exclusive." "I'm sure it's lovely," I replied, taking the seat at the very end of the table. The chair wobbled slightly, as if reminding me of my assigned place. Lila didn't bother hiding her inspection. The outfit, the bag, the shoes. Her eyebrows lifted just enough to confirm she had found what she expected. Someone beneath her. I tucked my hands in my lap, letting her opinions slide off like seawater from a hull. "It's so nice you could join us," she said. Her tone suggested the opposite. "I'm glad to be here," I replied. I meant it. Every uncomfortable second would eventually become useful. My eyes drifted across the room, finding tiny details others missed. The polished brass railing, the perfectly folded napkins, the staff moving with practiced grace. And there, near the front, a small wooden stand with a leather-bound reservation book laid open. Even from here, I recognized the embossed label on the cover. The words were faint, but I knew them by heart. Caldwell Window. My breath stilled for a moment. That corner table by the glass, the one with the best view of the harbor, carried my husband's name. Our name. Our legacy. Still present, still protecting. I turned back to my son. "You look tired," I said gently. He gave a sheepish smile. "It's been a long week. Work is demanding." "He's doing well," Victor cut in, as if Noah needed a spokesman. "We're thinking of helping him into something bigger soon, but it would require Certain standards. Appearances matter, you know. His fork tapped the plate. Deliberate. Judgment disguised as mentorship. I nodded, as though I didn't understand the insult. They wanted to teach me how to be respectable. How ironic. Our waiter should be here any moment, Lila said, straightening a bread plate that didn't need adjusting. We'll try to make this evening pleasant. I smiled. Oh, I have no doubt. Because pleasant evenings had a way of turning into unforgettable nights, and the most unforgettable ones often began like this: quiet, unassuming, underestimated. I sat up taller, fingers brushing the necklace beneath my dress. My husband, my strength, resting close to my heart. They saw a lonely widow trying her best not to embarrass her son. They saw a woman grateful for a seat in the dark corner. They saw so little. But soon they would see everything. The waiter arrived with a gentle smile, though his eyes flickered in curiosity as they passed over me. "May I bring you something to drink?" he asked. His accent was soft, respectful. Before I could open my mouth, Lila answered for me. "She'll have water, tap, no lemon." She didn't even look my way. She simply assumed control the way people do when they think someone has no power to object. "Actually," I said kindly, "I'd love a cup of tea. Earl Grey if you have it." My tone was measured, polite, not a challenge, just a reminder that I could speak for myself. Aiden, Tessa's younger brother, leaned back in his chair and lifted his phone, his front camera already pointed toward himself. "Dinner with the fam," he said into the lens. "Trying to show some generosity tonight. Everyone deserves a taste of the good life." He glanced at me through the screen as if he had just delivered a joke for his followers. My hands folded in my lap. It was too early to let irritation take root. The waiter left, and immediately Victor launched into a monologue about his latest watch purchase. He extended his wrist, the gold and gears gleaming under the chandeliers. "Limited edition. You can't find it anywhere. Cost more than some people earn in a year." He looked straight at me when he said it. "That's impressive," I replied, truly meaning it. Success isn't the enemy. Vanity is. Tessa shifted in her chair. She wasn't cruel like her parents. She was anxious, trapped between their approval and her conscience. I could feel her watching me with a quiet hope that I wouldn't embarrass anyone, especially Noah. "I've heard this place is beautiful near sunset," I said, nodding toward the waterfront windows. The horizon glowed crimson and violet beyond them, the ocean kissing the dying day. Victor let out a dry chuckle. "Oh, you can't see anything from over here." "No," Lila added, her lips curving only slightly. "Best view is up front. That area is always reserved." Ah, I knew. And the universe did too. Marisol, the general manager, stepped past our table. She glanced down, just for a moment. Recognition flashed behind her composed expression, the kind of recognition someone tries to hide out of respect for privacy. Her next step slowed, then resumed, as if she needed a second to swallow her surprise. That was the first spark in the dark. Our menus arrived. I held mine open, studying dishes I already knew by heart. My husband and I had eaten here dozens of times, but I let my eyes move slowly, as if deciphering something unfamiliar. Aiden leaned in, phone ready. "If you need help, I can recommend the salmon," he said loudly. "It's not cheap, but, it's okay to treat yourself once in a while." He filmed the moment. My face, my humble dress, his smug grin. He wanted an audience to join their assumptions. I looked up calmly. "Thank you. That's thoughtful." Noah cleared his throat. "Mom knows her way around restaurants," he murmured. "She's traveled a lot." Lila's eyebrow arched. "Cruises?" "Ports," I answered. "Work." It was a simple word with continents behind it, but simple was all they could handle. Lila turned to her daughter. We should upgrade your wardrobe soon, honey. People judge what they see first. She gave a pointed look at my purse. Isn't that right? I suppose so, I said, resting my fingers on the frayed canvas. Though sometimes what they see first is the part designed to mislead them. Her smile twitched, unsure whether she had been insulted or outmaneuvered. Victor motioned to the waiter again before he reached the neighboring table. We're ready to order, he announced, though no one else had spoken. The lady here, a tiny flick of his hand toward me, can have the chicken. It's reasonably priced. Reasonably priced? For whom exactly? The waiter looked to me, waiting for my confirmation. I'll decide in a moment, I said warmly, sparing him the awkwardness of choosing sides. That made Victor stare. I didn't fill the silence, even when it stretched thin. Some silences are meant to teach. Noah leaned toward me, voice barely above a whisper. Mom, thank you for coming. The words were heavy with apology he wasn't ready to say. I squeezed his hand under the table. He squeezed back. Then the comments began. Quiet enough to appear harmless, sharp enough to draw invisible blood. Some people retire and have nothing left. It's sad when older women cling to the past. Life is easier when you know your place. Each line was a jab masked as conversation. Noah's jaw tightened. Tessa's eyes dropped. Aiden kept filming snippets for his online audience. And Lila looked satisfied, the queen of a realm built on shallow ground. I stared straight ahead. The ocean outside was turning a deeper blue, the last of daylight slipping away. It reminded me of another night long ago, when Henry and I sat by that very window. We toasted to his Navy retirement. He promised me that even if his body left this world early, his love would remain anchored right here. He was right. His legacy was all around them, and they had no idea. The waiter returned with my tea. He placed it in front of me delicately, his voice soft. If there's anything you need, just ask. His eyes held a message beneath professionalism. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. I thanked him sincerely. Small kindnesses are never forgotten. Victor pointed a finger toward me, swirling his wine again. So, Wren, what do you do with your days now? Gardening? TV? Book club? His smirk widened. Or are you one of those who think they don't need help? Tessa inhaled sharply. I saw the shame flicker in her. Shame for him. Shame for herself for staying quiet. I stirred the tea slowly. I spend most of my days helping people who cannot help themselves. It keeps me grounded. He scoffed. Charity, he said, as if the word tasted sour. We donate too, of course. But it's important that people remember who provided the help. There it was, their entire value system in a single sentence. They wanted applause. They needed an audience. I took a sip of tea and smiled. I'm not interested in being remembered by the world, I said gently, only by the people who felt a difference. The table quieted. For the first time, Victor had no clever retort ready. My gaze drifted again to the reservation book at the front. A staff member flipped the page, and I saw the embossed label glint under the lights. Caldwell Window, my husband's gift to me, my gift to the city, a promise carved into the walls around us. And still, here I sat in the dark corner. I wasn't angry. I was patient. Silence can rebuild mountains if you know when to lift the first stone. Just then, Marisol stepped closer, pausing near my shoulder. Her voice was calm, almost reverent. If you need anything, Mrs. Caldwell, she said quietly, you let me know. Lila didn't hear. Victor didn't notice. Aiden was too busy filming. But Noah did. And for a moment, his eyes widened. A seed planted. I set down my cup and folded my napkin in my lap, prepared for what the evening would become. Some judgments are about to be reversed. The waiter had barely left to place our orders when Lila clasped her hands together with a bright, performative smile. It was the kind of expression a person wears right before saying something cruel, wrapped in the silky paper of concern. "So," she began, voice dripping honey, "we've been discussing how to support Noah better. Young marriages need stability, roots, guidance." Her gaze slipped to me, assessing whether I was smart enough to follow along. Victor leaned forward, lacing his fingers together on the table. "Exactly. And we think a structured approach could help everyone." Noah shifted in his seat, suddenly smaller. I felt his discomfort before he opened his mouth. "Mom, they're just trying to help." Lila nodded with a sympathetic tilt of her head. "We know things can be difficult on a single income." She paused just long enough for the implication to sting. "So we'd like to ensure you're comfortable." My hands rested on the tablecloth, still and calm. "That's very generous." "Of course it is," Victor said, as if generosity needed his confirmation to exist. "We've run the numbers. We've talked with our banker. We can spare $900 a month to make sure you have what you need." There it was, the price they put on my dignity. Lila smiled wider, pleased with herself. "You wouldn't need to rely on Noah at all. In fact, the arrangement would prevent any awkward requests for help from him in the future. We want him to focus on his own goals." Tessa's eyes flicked nervously between her parents and me. "Mom," she started, but the warning in Lila's look shut her down. Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out a small, stapled paper. "We drafted a few guidelines." He tapped the front page as though sealing a deal. "Nothing too restrictive, just a few common-sense expectations." He laid the document near my plate. I did not touch it. "Guidelines?" I echoed softly. "For the arrangement," he said. "To give everyone clarity." His voice lowered, like he was explaining something to a child. "For example, no surprise visits to Noah and Tessa's home without calling first. No dropping by their workplaces. No stories about past professional roles that might confuse people about your current circumstances." The fork in Noah's hand trembled. He set it down before it clattered. "And," Lila added, brushing imaginary crumbs from her blazer sleeve, "it would ease everyone's mind if you kept a lower profile. Appearance matters, especially for Noah's future." Her eyes glanced down my dress again, like it offended the upholstery. Aiden, ever the opportunist, lifted his phone once more. "This is gold," he whispered to himself, angling for a shot that included his parents' polished confidence and my assumed desperation. He thought he was filming generosity. He was capturing vanity. The harbor lights shimmered through the distant windows, blurred by distance. I felt them calling, reminding me that truth always finds its way to the surface, even in rooms that try to bury it. I inhaled slowly. "I appreciate the offer," I said, keeping my tone warm. "What are the conditions for accepting this help?" Victor's smile returned. He pushed the papers closer. "Just sign these." There was pride in his eyes. In his mind, he was rescuing the poor widow from irrelevance. "And if I don't sign?" I asked. Lila leaned back. "Well, then it might be best to maintain a little distance, for Noah's sake." Her voice remained pleasant, but every syllable was a blade. Noah's jaw clenched. "Mom?" I stopped him with the gentlest touch to his arm, not to silence him, to protect him. "That's very thoughtful," I said. "But I'm curious. Why 900? Victor chuckled. "We must be realistic. We can't set a precedent that creates dependency. We prefer to keep philanthropy local and visible." Local and visible. Applause nearby. Headlines close enough to cut out and frame. "And what would you like in return for this amount?" I asked. Lila blinked, surprised that I dared speak. Just appreciation. Appreciation. A leash made of gratitude, short, polished, and choking. She continued, confidence swelling again. You've lived quietly for many years. It's only right that someone steps in to provide structure, stability, a sense of place. A sense of place. The corner of the restaurant, the bottom rung of their family ladder. Aiden angled his phone higher. This is what helping looks like, he said under his breath, rehearsing his narrative for strangers online. I turned to him. Helping whom? I asked. His smirk faltered. Victor spoke quickly, eager to regain control. Look, Wren, we just want to avoid any embarrassments. Some people look out of place at fancy establishments. His eyes moved pointedly toward my canvas purse. And you worry I might embarrass you? I asked. They both nodded, thinking they were agreeing with something reasonable. My heartbeat stayed calm. My voice stayed soft. But a new current of strength flowed beneath each word. I see. You're not offering support. You're purchasing silence. Lila stiffened. Victor blinked. Aiden lowered his phone halfway. I continued, my tone still gentle but sharpened by honesty. You're not asking me to accept help. You're asking me to accept humiliation, to pretend I am less so you can feel more. Noah exhaled, his relief mixed with guilt. Tessa swallowed hard, her eyes shining with something close to shame. Victor huffed, adjusting his watch. We're merely thinking of Noah's future. Appearances are important. To some, I said, but character is important to everyone. For the first time that evening, Lila's voice cracked. We are offering you a lifeline. And I am offering you patience, I answered. One beat of silence, then another. The waiter returned with plates, interrupting the tension. He set mine down gently. The chef hopes you enjoy this, he said quietly. It's a special dish tonight. He knew. Small kindnesses again. A soft reminder that not everyone judged by appearances. Aiden slowly raised his phone again, needing validation from unseen strangers. But for once, he hesitated before recording. I placed my napkin on the table and looked directly at Victor and Lila. When people try to buy a person's dignity, I said, they underestimate how expensive dignity truly is. Noah stared at me, something in him breaking open and beginning to heal. Mom, he whispered, voice shaking. I'm sorry. Tessa reached for his hand under the table, her own trembling. I lifted my chin, offering a kind smile to the two people who had just tried to shrink my existence into a monthly allowance. Thank you for your offer, I said, but I'm afraid I simply cost too much. Aiden's phone lowered completely. A ripple moved through the silence. Not loud, not dramatic, but deep enough to change the night. For a long moment, no one at the table spoke. The only sound was the hush of the dining room around us, wine glasses touching, soft jazz drifting from unseen speakers, forks brushing porcelain. The air had thickened, heavy with the discomfort of those who no longer controlled the script. Lila cleared her throat first, that same brittle smile plastered on her face. We didn't mean to offend you, she insisted, as if offense were an optional reaction. I'm not offended, I said, taking a calm sip of my tea. I'm evaluating. She blinked, thrown off. Evaluating what? What money can buy, I replied softly, and what it cannot. Victor straightened in his chair, sensing a debate he believed he could win. Money buys choice, independence, the respect of others. Does it? I asked, setting down my cup. Or does it simply rent their attention while it lasts? His mouth froze mid-sentence. Aiden, who had been silent longer than he ever was on camera, leaned forward slightly, curiosity interrupting his mockery. Even Tessa looked up, as though hoping someone would finally articulate the thing she had always felt but never dared say. I continued, my voice still quiet. True power is earned. It is carried in how you treat people, not in the weight of a wallet or the shine of a watch. Victor scoffed. And what would you know about power? I smiled gently, enough to recognize when someone is terrified of losing it. Lila shifted uncomfortably. Her fingers twisted the cloth napkin, the first visible crack in her polished exterior. We're not terrified, she insisted, but her voice wavered. Noah looked from his mother-in-law to me, something dawning in his expression. For the first time, he saw their behavior not as guidance, but as insecurity dressed in silk. The waiter appeared again, setting a fresh basket of bread between us. He placed a cup of lemon wedges beside my tea. Tiny detail, so small, but he had noticed I wanted lemon earlier, even after being told I shouldn't have any. Respect requires attention. Money requires display. Victor still wanted the upper hand. People with power, he said, leaning closer, don't need to lecture others about it. They simply have it. That's correct, I agreed. He looked satisfied for half a heartbeat. Then I added, which is why I haven't needed to say a word about myself tonight. A flush crept up Victor's neck. He didn't like realizing he had been performing while I had simply been present. Aiden, unable to resist the urge to spark something on camera, lifted his phone slightly under the table, trying to appear discreet. I saw the motion, and I saw the fear behind it. The fear that maybe the story he thought he was recording wasn't the story the world would see. You know, I said gently, turning my gaze to him, social media has turned a lot of people into spectators of their own lives. They forget the difference between attention and admiration. His jaw tightened. He looked away. I glanced back to Victor. You say money buys independence, yet everything you've said tonight has been about how others see you, what they think, what judgment they pass. If you were truly independent, you wouldn't be so afraid of other people's opinions. Lila bristled, clutching her empty wine glass like a shield. Appearances matter in society, she said sharply. They matter only to those who don't have anything deeper to offer, I replied, not unkindly. The waiter approached again, leaning slightly toward Marisol, who had walked up beside him. She whispered something into his ear, then looked at me. There was a tiny nod, a signal we both understood. The shift had begun. I folded my hands, letting silence settle. Then, almost as an afterthought, I asked the question that had been waiting. When you strip away money, what remains? Victor rolled his eyes. Ideals, dreams, romantic fantasies. Character, I said plainly. The word landed like a quiet gavel, deciding the round. Noah's breathing steadied. Tessa's shoulders eased. They were witnessing a different hierarchy than the one they grew up in. One built on values, not valuation. Victor tried again, unwilling to lose a battle he didn't understand. Look, I've earned everything I have. I didn't inherit a foundation or a trust fund from my parents. And I admire that, I said. Hard work is honest currency. I paused just long enough for a heartbeat to pass. But there's a difference between building something and needing everyone to see you building it. He froze, because that was him. Every toast he made, every photo he posed for, every expensive wine bottle ordered loud enough for the room to hear. Lila attempted to regain control. We were only trying to help you, she repeated. And I know, I said gently. But help offered with conditions isn't help. It's a contract. And if the cost of that contract is my pride, then the price is too high. Her face reddened with humiliation. She tried to hide behind indignation. We just want what's best for Noah, she said stiffly. Then teach him that love isn't measured in dollars, I replied. Teach him that a person's worth isn't determined by their table location. Noah's eyes glistened. He looked as if he were seeing me clearly for the first time in a long while. The waiter reappeared, but this time he wasn't holding plates. He leaned toward Marisol again, who nodded and then stepped away with purpose in her stride. The dining room shifted its attention briefly toward the kitchen doors, sensing movement. I looked back at Victor and Lila. Real power, I said, voice soft but unmistakable, is when the world already knows your value before you ever have to open your mouth. Their brows furrowed, confused, because they still assumed I was powerless, because they still believed money in the hand mattered more than honor in the heart, because they had not yet seen who respected me in this room. But they were about to. I lifted my tea again, letting the warmth settle into my hands as if gathering the final moment of quiet before the tide reached shore. When you spend your life trying to appear important, I continued, you miss the chance to actually become someone worth respecting. The dining room doors swung open behind them. A pause. A hush. Footsteps crossed the floor with the calm confidence of someone who did not need to be introduced. No one else at the table understood what those footsteps meant. But I did, because some people buy their status, and some people earn it. The steps approaching were steady, confident, unhurried. People turned their heads before the figure even emerged from the kitchen doors. Some individuals command attention without raising a voice, without demanding a spotlight. They simply arrive, and the room knows. Emilio Vargas, the owner of the restaurant, stepped into view wearing his white chef's coat with the embroidered initials on the chest. He was tall, with silver in his hair that matched the dignified calm in his eyes. When he spotted me, a warmth sparked across his face that melted the tension in my shoulders. He did not walk toward the host stand. He did not stop to greet any other table. He came straight to me. Aiden lowered his phone out of instinct, not wanting to be caught recording something he did not understand. Lila and Victor stared, waiting for Emilio to ask why I was seated so far from the front, why I did not belong in the best view of the house. Emilio stopped beside me and extended his arms. "There you are," he said, his voice rich with warmth. "I was beginning to worry you wouldn't make it tonight." I stood, letting him embrace me. His hug was firm and respectful, as familiar as family. And then, before anyone could breathe, he said the line that cracked the world open. "Your table is always reserved, ma'am," his voice carried. Diners paused mid-conversation. Forks clinked softly against plates. Eyes widened around the room. My table, always, reserved. Lila's jaw slackened. Victor's eyebrows shot up. Aiden's phone dipped completely into his lap. Even Tessa gasped quietly, hand flying to her mouth. Noah stared at me like he'd never seen me before. Respect moved through the staff like electricity finding light bulbs. Emilio stepped back only when he was sure the message had settled into every corner of the room. "I told Marisol to prepare your favorite table near the window," he said. "It's waiting for you." He tilted his head toward the front of the restaurant, where candles flickered in elegant holders and the ocean view framed the twilight like a painting. There, I saw it. The place my husband and I once sat. The Caldwell window. It was set with care. A small card tucked under the crystal water glass. Reserved. Not reserved for money, reserved for memory. Emilio's voice softened. "We still keep that bottle of red you like. The one with the ships on the label. I'll have it opened." My throat tightened. The wine he referenced was the same we ordered on our last anniversary before Henry passed. It wasn't the vintage that mattered. It was the history it carried. "I appreciate that," I said, my voice just above a whisper. Emilio glanced to Noah and Tessa. "Is this your family?" he asked kindly. "Yes," I said, placing a gentle hand on my son's shoulder. "They are." He nodded with pride. "Good. Then they should join you at the Caldwell window. It is far too beautiful tonight to waste on anything less than family." Family, not in-laws trying to buy their importance, not people who tear others down. Family built by love, not ego. Noah stood quickly, breath shaky. He looked at Tessa with a hopeful plea. Her eyes glistened with a mix of awe and apology. Slowly she rose and slipped her hand into his. Aiden stayed frozen. Reality felt different when it wasn't filtered through a screen. Victor cleared his throat, attempting to salvage dignity. "We weren't told there was any special arrangement." Emilio turned his attention to him. "The special arrangement is history, respect, a lifetime of supporting this community quietly. Some people do not need announcements to make an impact." He didn't say their names. He didn't have to. Lila's cheeks flushed with humiliation and confusion. The narrative she had built crumbled without a sound. Marisol appeared beside Emilio, elegance in every movement. She addressed me with a gentle, admiring smile. "Mrs. Caldwell, we have everything ready for you," she said. "Would you like us to transfer your meal now, or would you prefer to order fresh?" Her tone carried something like reverence, not because of wealth, because of recognition, because the people running this place knew the truth. Gratitude buys loyalty that money never can. I exhaled slowly. For the first time that evening, I let a piece of my real life show. "Fresh, please," I said with a small smile. "Tonight deserves the best." Marisol nodded. "Absolutely." She gestured toward the front, and a staff member swiftly pulled back the chair at the window table as if welcoming royalty. Lila opened her mouth, searching for something to say. Nothing came. Victor attempted a smile that wilted instantly. "Well, I suppose we should follow." "Yes," I replied softly, meeting his eyes with calm grace. "You should." His facade wavered. Respect isn't something you can demand. It's something that reveals itself when you discover who truly has it. Noah stepped beside me, still visibly processing everything. "Mom," he whispered, "how do they know you so well?" I leaned closer and kissed his cheek. "Kindness leaves a long trail," I said. "People remember who helped them stand." He swallowed hard, eyes shimmering. Tessa slipped her arm through his, her voice fragile but sincere. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We were wrong." I squeezed her hand. "Tonight is a beginning. You get to choose who you become." Behind them, Aiden finally stood, pocketing his phone, realizing this moment wasn't his to broadcast. It was his to learn from. As I walked toward the front, each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself Noah had forgotten. Not loud, not triumphant. True. We reached the Caldwell window. The view stretched over the harbor where ships slept under the fading glow of day. A place built from love. A promise kept. A chair slid beneath me as I sat. Noah and Tessa took their seats beside me. The candles flickered. The water shimmered. And silence became space to breathe. For the first time that evening, I wasn't in the shadows. I was home. We sat together quiet, hearts steady. From our new table, the ocean spread wide and dark outside the glass, waves folding into themselves below the deck lights. This was the table Henry loved most, the one he chose whenever we celebrated anything worth remembering. I brushed my fingers over the polished wood, feeling the echoes of his laughter still captured in the grain. Noah hadn't stopped glancing at me since we moved. His expression was part awe, part confusion, and part fear that he had misjudged me in ways too large to ignore. "Mom," he said quietly, "I didn't know you and the owner were friends." "Respect creates friendships," I answered, smiling. "Titles don't." Tessa settled into her seat, shoulders lowered from the defensive position she had held all night. She looked small and humbled, as if something inside her had shifted just enough to let the truth in. She smoothed her napkin over her lap, avoiding the eyes of her parents still making their way toward us, steps stiff, faces pale. The staff set fresh place settings, each movement precise and care-filled. The voices from other tables softened, their attention still leaning in our direction like a hushed tide. Wren Caldwell was no longer invisible. Marisol returned, carrying a small covered plate. "Chef wanted you to have this first," she said. "He remembered it was your favorite." She lifted the lid, revealing a delicate appetizer, scallops seared just so, dressed with lemon butter and a sprig of rosemary. My breath caught. It was the same dish Emilio sent out the night after Henry returned from his final deployment. The night he told me he would retire soon. The night he promised we would have more ordinary Tuesdays together. I blinked back the sting in my eyes. "Thank you," I said softly. Marisol nodded once, her voice near a whisper. "We are honored you're here." She stepped away, but not before giving a quick, discreet glance toward Lila and Victor, who sat quietly now, unsure whether to speak or vanish. Their performance had lost its audience. Noah took a sip of water like he needed courage. "Mom," he asked, careful but desperate, "how do they know you so well?" I looked at him, and for a moment, I saw the little boy who once rode on Henry's shoulders through crowded port terminals, waving at sailors like they were superheroes. I saw the boy who cried when Henry left for months at a time. I saw the boy who now tried so hard to look grown that he forgot where he came from. "I've spent a lot of years trying to make life better for people who keep this city moving," I said. "Not the ones in corner offices or on magazine covers. The ones nobody thanks. The ones nobody sees." "You mean through the foundation?" he asked. "Yes," I replied. "Your father started the Caldwell Foundation before you were born. We kept it going after he passed." Quietly. His lips parted slightly. I thought the foundation was just a charity you supported sometimes. I didn't know it was part of your work." "I didn't need you to know," I said, reaching for his hand. "I needed you to become your own man, not mine." His eyes darkened with regret. "I'm sorry I asked you to hide yourself." "It's all right," I whispered. "You were afraid they'd judge me. You forgot I've already learned how to rise above judgment." Tessa swallowed, voice unsteady. "We misjudged you," she said. "I misjudged you. I let my parents' opinions decide what I thought was respectable." "You grew up surrounded by a very loud definition of value," I said gently. "It's easy to believe the noise." She bit her lip, ashamed. "It isn't loud because it's right," she said. "It's loud because it's scared." I smiled. She was learning faster than her parents ever could. Victor and Lila reached the table, sitting down without a word. Their silence was an admission. Embarrassment had drained their confidence. For the first time, they looked small. Emilio approached again, placing a bottle of wine on the table with deliberate care. "This was your favorite anniversary wine," he told me, almost tenderly. "Ship on the label, same vineyard, same year." His voice softened further. "I was sorry when your husband passed. He was a good man, a strong one." "He was," I said, touching the hidden ring against my chest. "He would have loved tonight." Emilio nodded. "He would have been proud." That sentence broke something open inside me. The cork released with a soft pop. The scent rose, rich with memories. Emilio poured just a splash into my glass. I lifted it, staring into the dark ruby swirl. To Henry, I whispered. Noah lifted his glass too. To Dad. Tessa followed. Even Lila and Victor raised theirs, though uneasily, unsure if it was a command or a privilege. We drank. Warmth bloomed in my chest. Love filled the space where silence used to live. Aiden finally broke, his curiosity overtaking his pride. So, what do you do? He asked, eyes wide. Like, actually? I set my glass down gently. I manage 6 ports, I said. Trade routes, logistics, security. If I do my job well, millions of people get what they need each day without realizing why. His mouth dropped. You're one of those people who makes the world work quietly. I try to, I replied. Victor stared at me as if seeing a ghost. You're not retired? I consult now, I said. But I don't lead with my title. I lead with my values. Lila's voice cracked. Why wouldn't you tell us any of this? I shrugged lightly. You were committed to believing I needed your approval. I didn't want to take that away from you. Noah covered his face with his hand, overwhelmed. Tessa rested her head briefly against his shoulder, whispering something I couldn't hear. Probably, we were wrong. I breathed in the sea air drifting through the subtle cracks of the door. I was here. My truth was here. And the people who had tried to make me smaller had become witnesses to their own pettiness. Marisol returned with a second small dish. A handmade pasta Henry used to order when he needed comfort after long deployments. I smiled through the ache. Grief and love danced together in my chest, inseparable partners. Tessa dabbed her tears with a napkin. I didn't know, she said. I didn't know any of this. You do now, I said kindly. And now you get to choose differently. She nodded, resolute. The waves kissed the pier outside, steady and certain. The restaurant glowed with a soft reverence that felt almost spiritual. People across the room still stared, not with judgment, but with respect that could not be pretended. One single question hung in the space between all of us at that table. Who is she? They were finally beginning to understand. The check arrived on a silver tray. Marisol set it between Victor and me, letting the room decide. Victor reached first, sliding out a card. He lifted it just high enough for nearby tables to notice. I'll take care of this, he said, because generosity to him needed an audience. The waiter carried the card to the terminal near the bar. A soft chirp, then a sharper tone. He checked the screen, face composed, then returned with the card and a blank receipt. Sir, your bank declined the transaction. It could be a security filter. Would you like me to try again? Victor laughed, relieved at the easy excuse. Run it again. Noah held his breath. Tessa's fingers tightened around his. Lila settled her shoulders as if the second attempt would restore gravity. Aiden lifted his phone, angling for a shot that would confirm the story he wanted. Order preserved. At the bar, the machine chirped again. Another tone followed, quiet but final. The printer did not move. The waiter's voice softened. I'm sorry. It didn't go through a second time. Second refusals change a room. Lila's smile thinned. Victor's jaw hardened. This is ridiculous, he muttered. He pulled a second card halfway out, then froze, pride holding his hand. There's more than enough in that account. Marisol approached with professional kindness. We can wait while you call the bank, or we can split the check. Whatever is easiest. Kindness made the truth brighter. Victor pushed his card back toward the waiter. Try it again, he said, refusing to yield. The terminal answered with the same small denial, like a door closing gently. The waiter looked at me before he looked at Victor. He knew I knew. He set the card down with care. I'm sorry, he said. It declined. Silence pooled around the table. Noah stared at his hands. My son had learned so many shallow lessons here. I wanted him to leave with deeper ones. I reached for my canvas wallet. It felt honest in my palm. May I? I asked Marisol. Please, she said, relieved. I slid out a deep navy card marked only with a quiet emblem. Victor squinted. What card is that? A formality, I said. The waiter ran it. Chirp. The printer spun. The receipt curled like a ribbon. Approved, he said, offering the booklet with a small nod. Victor, phone still in his hand from calling the bank, lowered it an inch. What bank is that? He asked, searching for a mechanical reason to avoid the human one. The kind that knows me? I answered. Aiden's phone tipped toward the table, then slid into his pocket. He remembered the fraud alert I had mentioned to Noah earlier in the week. He understood now what it meant to be prepared before a moment arrives. Leela bristled. We would have paid, she insisted, if the system hadn't been absurd tonight. I know, I said. You wanted to pay to restore the story. Her mouth opened, then closed again. Emilio stepped closer, not to gloat, but to steady the moment. The bill is settled, he said gently. Would you like dessert menus, or would you prefer a few quiet minutes by the window? By the window, I said. He inclined his head toward Victor and Lila. Systems fail, he added. People don't have to. The waiter returned my card with a small envelope tucked beneath the receipt. I opened it. Inside was a simple note in Emilio's hand, always reserved. Henry's ring warmed against my skin. Tessa exhaled. I didn't know nights could change like this, she whispered. They change when truth is allowed to stand, I replied. Victor finally found his voice. I will call the bank, he said bleakly. Lila touched his arm, embarrassed, not for the decline, but for the loss of choreography. Across the restaurant, conversation resumed. The tide of attention rolled away. What lingered was not gloating. It was an accounting, what money could do and what it could not. I signed the receipt, added a generous tip for a staff that had moved with grace, and slid the booklet back. Marisol's gratitude was a nod, nothing more, but it felt like a handshake with the whole house. Aiden cleared his throat. So, that happens sometimes, he said to no one in particular. It does, I answered. And it teaches something every time. What? He asked. That the loudest wallet is never as impressive as a steady hand. Noah looked at me, eyes wet. He wasn't seeing the bill. He was seeing the bill of goods he'd been sold about status. Mom, he said, voice thick, I'm sorry. You're growing, I said. That's all I ever wanted. Tessa squeezed his hand again. We're learning, she said. Marisol cleared the remaining glasses and set a small card holder by my elbow, brushed leather with an embossed window frame. For you, she said. Inside, a printed line read, Caldwell window, always reserved. I smiled. Thank you, she leaned in. We never forget who keeps the lights on in this city. I nodded once, nor who kept them on when the storms came. Victor slid his wallet away, the fight gone. Lila's gaze drifted toward the front, where the reservation book rested like scripture for people who believe in appearances. She finally looked back at me. For the first time tonight, there was something like respect in her eyes. Not agreement, not surrender. Just a hesitant acknowledgement that value existed beyond show. Emilio lifted 2 dessert menus, then set them aside. Take a moment, he said. The view is better without distractions. We did. The harbor lay outside like black glass scattered with city stars. Noah squeezed my hand, steady now, breathing easier beside Tessa at last. The window reflected our faces, tired, humbled, awake. Money had tried to end the night on its terms. Respect finished it on mine. The soft murmur of the restaurant had settled into its natural rhythm again, but something in the air had shifted. Respect replaces noise. Awareness replaces doubt. And people who once believed, they stood at the center of every room, begin noticing how many spaces were never truly theirs. Victor tried to act unfazed by the declined payments, but the tremor in his hands betrayed him. He kept glancing toward the bar where the terminal sat, as if staring long enough might rewrite reality. Lila dabbed at the corner of her mouth with her linen napkin, attempting to polish dignity back into place. Aiden remained unusually quiet. His phone stayed in his pocket, a prisoner of the truth he wasn't sure how to record. Marisol returned, carrying a leather folder that looked like it belonged behind a bank vault door. She set it gently on the edge of our table, as though delivering a secret with weight. "There's something Chef thought you might appreciate," she said softly. She opened the folder to reveal several official documents tucked neatly inside protective sleeves. Not flashy, not loud, just facts written in the language of ownership. I didn't need to read them. I knew every line by heart. Marisol addressed me respectfully. "Our most recent insurance renewal is signed by Caldwell Holdings. We updated the municipality records earlier this year. The ownership stamp still lists you as primary trustee." Lila frowned, confused. "Insurance? For what exactly?" Marisol turned a page. "This building," she said, "and the commercial lot beneath it." Victor leaned forward, a sheen of sweat forming along his hairline. "I thought the Harts owned this property," he said, voice cracking slightly. "No," Marisol replied. "The Hart family leases their office floors from Caldwell Holdings. Rent payments auto-transfer on the first business day of each month." Lila's eyes widened, horror blooming slowly like ink on paper. "And Vargas House?" she asked, voice dangerously thin. Marisol nodded. "Leases as well. Long-term, favorable terms, written with affection." Affection. Henry always believed in supporting people who made a community thrive. Emilio joined us, drying his hands on his apron. "Your husband was a good man," he said firmly. "He wanted this place to survive every storm, including the kind caused by people who forget what hospitality means." Noah's breath caught. "Mom, you own the building?" "I'm a trustee," I corrected gently. "Custodian would be a better word. The foundation owns the property. I just make sure what we built continues helping others." Tessa reached for Noah's hand under the table, grounding him. "You never bragged," she whispered. "Bragging is insecurity wearing jewelry," I replied. Everyone went still. Even the waves outside seemed to hold their breath. Victor looked as if someone had pulled the ground out from under his shoes. "All this time, you pretended to be—" "I pretended nothing," I said. "I simply didn't lead with a resume." Lila swallowed. "Why wouldn't you tell us?" "You didn't ask," I answered. "You assumed." Her lips pressed together, painted perfection cracking at the corners. Emilio shifted his gaze to Victor. "She funded the renovation after the hurricane," he said. "Without her, we would have closed. Hundreds would have lost employment." Victor's mouth worked soundlessly. "And," Emilio continued, "the tribute plaque for Captain Caldwell. Your foundation paid for that too. We placed it near this window because he said the harbor was the soul of the city." His voice softened. "We honor that here." My hand went to the necklace beneath my dress, holding Henry's ring as if it might pulse with life again. Aiden finally spoke. "So this whole place is here because of you?" "No," I said. "It's here because of us." I gestured toward the kitchen, the staff, the harbor beyond the glass. Henry and I believed good people deserved a home they could be proud of, a place where they were more than invisible hands. He stared at me, phone still untouched. For once, he wanted to remember something without filming it. Lila looked down at her designer clutch. For the first time, the leather seemed cheap compared to the richness of humility. Victor cleared his throat, desperate to grasp any rope within reach. Well, in that case, he forced a laugh. It's wonderful we came here. What luck? I smiled gently. Luck had very little to do with it. Tessa let out a shaky breath, tears threatening. I should have known, she whispered. You never looked down on us, even when we did that to you. It's easier to climb on pedestals when you think someone else is beneath you, I said. But pedestals are unstable places to stand. The wind outside shifted. Clouds drifted across the moonlight, dimming the glow across the table. Shadows danced along the glass, a metaphor painted by nature itself. Noah leaned in, voice small but determined. Mom, I want to do better. I want to deserve this seat. You already do, I replied, not because of where you sit, but because of who you're willing to become. He wiped his eyes quickly, as if afraid tears might question his adulthood. Marisol closed the folder and stepped back, giving the moment space to breathe. If you need anything at all, she said, you only have to ask. She glanced briefly at Lila and Victor, her kindness unwavering. Anything. Lila tried to muster a smile, but her pride no longer remembered how to hold its shape. Victor sank slightly in his chair, the loss of status clinging to him like damp clothes. Ownership isn't measured in deeds or dollars. It's measured by stewardship. By the people who benefit from the walls you hold up, not the ones you push against. I sat taller and let the truth settle where humiliation once tried to take root. They had wanted me small. They had needed me small. But the walls around us remembered who built them, and walls never lie. Noah broke the silence with a steady voice I hadn't heard in years. That's my mother, he said proudly, unapologetically, the words ringing clear enough for the room to absorb. Lila inhaled sharply. Tessa blinked back tears. Aiden stared like a student, finally grateful the teacher didn't give up on him. Victor stared into his empty wine glass, as though hoping answers lay at the bottom. The harbor wind pressed lightly against the windows, a silent applause. I closed my eyes for one heartbeat, imagining Henry at my side. His hand would squeeze mine. His voice would whisper, "You did good, Wren." I opened my eyes again, shoulders free of apology. Some people own their status. Others own their purpose. Tonight, the difference had become unmistakable. The room exhaled, the building held its breath. I felt the weight of the evening slide from my shoulders and settle into the harbor night beyond the glass. The check was closed, yet the moment still asked for grace. Not the kind you announce, the kind you practice. Marisol approached with the leather folio and placed it gently beside my plate. Everything is settled, she said. Would you like anything else before you leave? Yes, I answered. I'd like to do this my way. She understood. Her nod was small and respectful. She opened the folio just enough to show the printed total and the line where gratitude lives in numbers. I wrote without hesitation, a thank you in ink instead of applause. Noah watched me, quiet. Tessa leaned closer to him, her hand covering his. Across from us, Lila kept her posture perfect but her certainty shaken. Victor fidgeted with a cufflink, a man searching for a script that no longer fit. 30%, Marisol murmured when she returned. The words weren't praise, they were recognition. The staff will appreciate this. They've carried this room all night, I said. Let them feel it. The waiter who had navigated the earlier discomfort paused with a tray. "Thank you, ma'am," he said softly, "for the way you were with everyone." "Thank you," I replied, "for the way you held the line." He smiled and moved on. Respect had become the common language again. I set my canvas wallet on the table. Its edges were worn and honest. I ran my thumb along a fray and felt Henry's steadiness return to me. Money can shout. Kindness whispers and is heard farther. Victor cleared his throat. "We should contribute," he said, reaching for his pocket. "At least let us cover dessert." "The account has already settled," Marisol said, professional and kind. "There's nothing left to add." He sank back, thwarted by timing rather than generosity. The impulse wasn't unkind, only late. Lila looked toward the window, then back to me. "I didn't come here to be humbled," she said, almost to herself. "None of us do," I replied. "But humility finds us when we need it." She pressed her lips, together, then nodded once, an acknowledgement that cost her more than money. Emilio appeared with a small envelope sealed in deep blue wax. He set it near my hand. "For you," he said. "From the house." I cracked the seal and slid out a card printed on heavy paper. "Caldwell window, always reserved." Beneath it, in Emilio's handwriting, a single line. "For the lessons that keep us open." I held the card like a compass. "Thank you," I said. "We don't forget who steadied us when the winds rose," he replied. Noah's voice was barely breath. "Mom, what made you choose this?" "Choose what?" I asked. "This life," he said. "Quiet, patient, strong without needing a stage." I thought of Henry teaching me to tie lines on a rocking deck, of long nights in control rooms where decisions were measured in lives and livelihoods, of volunteers stacking boxes in a storm while I signed papers no one would read. "I chose what holds," I said. "Loud things blow away." Tessa wiped her eyes. "I want to remember this," she whispered. "I want to remember how it felt when the room changed because dignity stood up." Marisol returned with a slim device. "Would you prefer to swipe here?" I nodded and slid the Navy card one more time, not because it was required, but because ritual matters. The terminal chimed. The printer hummed. I signed again, a final flourish that belonged to no one's ego. Victor watched, caught between admiration and regret. "I misjudged you," he said finally, each word slow. "I misjudge people too," I answered. "The work is to correct it when truth arrives." Lila inhaled and chose something softer than defense. "Thank you for dinner," she said. "You're welcome," I replied. "Thank you for staying." Aiden shifted, restless, without a camera to hide behind. "Does it get easier?" he asked. "Being the person who doesn't need to prove anything?" "It gets clearer," I said. "Clarity is kinder than ease." He nodded, surprised by relief. The staff began their quiet end-of-service ballet, clearing plates with invisible choreography. I watched how they cared for small details, the way a napkin was folded before being lifted, the way a glass was turned so the light cleaned its edge. Excellence is never accidental. Emilio touched the back of my chair. "Would you like to see the plaque tonight?" "Yes," I said. "Please." We stood. Noah moved quickly to pull out my chair. The gesture was simple and right. Tessa rose beside him and offered her arm without thinking. Lila followed, slower, as if learning to walk in unfamiliar shoes. Victor came last, quiet as the view. We walked the aisle. Conversations dipped respectfully as we passed, not out of spectacle, out of understanding. At the window, the harbor stretched like dark silk. Emilio pointed to a bronze rectangle set into the wood just below eye level. A small spotlight warmed its face. "Captain Henry Caldwell," it read. Sailor, husband, builder of safe harbors. I traced the letters with one fingertip. The metal felt cool and certain. Noah's reflection hovered next to mine in the glass, his jaw set with a new kind of strength. "He would be proud of you," Noah said. "I hope so," I answered. "He would," Emilio said, and I believed him. We stood a long moment in shared quiet, the kind that says more than speeches. Behind us, Marisol directed her team with the grace of a conductor who loves both the music and the players. The city breathed in slow rhythm. The bay replied. I tucked the reservation card into my canvas wallet and felt the contrast between paper and fabric, symbol and life. One remembers, the other endures. When we returned to the table, there was nothing left to settle. The numbers were done. The lesson remained. Noah cleared his throat. "Thank you for leading us here," he said softly. "Lead yourselves from now on," I replied. "You know the way." Tessa nodded. "We do." Victor straightened, a man practicing again. "If you'll allow it," he said carefully, "I'd like to apologize. I confused wealth with worth." "Accepted," I said. "Prove it with how you treat the next person who seems small." Leela met my eyes. "I will." The promise sounded real. Marisol brought our coats. She placed mine over my shoulders with a kindness that felt like family. "Good night, Mrs. Caldwell," she said. "Good night," I answered. "Thank you for keeping this place true." Outside the glass, a cargo ship's horn sounded low and steady, a benediction from the water. We rose together, chairs tucked in, napkins folded. Nothing dramatic. Just a room resetting to itself after remembering what it was built for. Grace paid the bill. Gratitude tipped the balance. Dignity walked us to the door. The night air cooled my skin as we stepped outside. The sound of the waves was softer here, like the ocean was whispering secrets only widows recognize. The restaurant's glow faded behind us, and the city stretched ahead in watery reflections of gold and blue. Hank pulled up in front of the entrance just as we reached the curb. He climbed out carefully and opened the passenger door with a familiar nod. "How was dinner, Miss Wren?" "Revealing," I said. He chuckled, brushing a raindrop from his sleeve. "Those are the best kind." Noah slid in first, holding the door for me. Tessa followed, still quiet with reflection. When the door shut, the inside of the car filled with a comfortable stillness. Hank merged onto the road without rushing, giving us space to breathe after so much truth. Streetlights shimmered across the windshield. The muted hum of tires on pavement was soothing. I stared out the window, watching the harbor fade into the distance. The night seemed to exhale with me, releasing everything that had tried to hold me small. After a few minutes, Noah cleared his throat. "Mom," he said, voice steady but unsure. "Can we talk more? About Dad? I didn't know he did so much. I didn't know you both built all of this." "You weren't supposed to," I replied gently. "We wanted you to feel free to choose your own path, not to feel like you were walking in anybody's shadow." His eyes glistened in the passing light. "But I forgot who taught me to walk." I squeezed his hand. "You remembered tonight." Tessa spoke quietly, her voice threaded with remorse. "I've spent so long trying to impress people who don't even know what respect means. I'm sorry. Truly." "You're learning," I said. Tonight gave us all lessons. Hank slowed the car as we approached the bridge, the moon reflecting off the broad water beneath. The lights from docked ships sparkled like old stars. He glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "Mind if I say something?" he asked. "Please do," I replied. He nodded once, as if giving himself permission to reveal more than his usual politeness. "When my wife passed, people told me I had to keep moving or the grief would swallow me. They didn't understand the difference between standing still and standing strong." His eyes softened. You know that difference. You've stood strong a long time. I let his words settle. Strength isn't loud, I said. It's the quiet that keeps families from sinking. Hank smiled, then continued. There were days when I didn't know how I'd eat. Then one afternoon, a young man from the Caldwell Foundation came to my door with groceries and said someone believed I deserved a chance to stand again. That kindness changed everything. When they told me who funded it, I promised myself that if you ever needed me, I'd show up. No questions asked. Noah's eyes widened. Mom, was that Dad? Hank nodded. Yes. And later, her. Tessa pressed a hand to her chest as if her heart had just learned a new language. I had no idea, she whispered. No one did, Hank replied. That's the point. Real generosity doesn't need a witness. Silence washed over us, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was reverence. The car curved along the riverbank, headlights sweeping across park benches and trees swaying gently in the breeze. Hank pulled into a small overlook area where the water glittered beneath string lights wrapped around old lampposts. He shifted into park and turned to face me. You know, he said softly, the hardest part of being underestimated is pretending it doesn't hurt. His voice trembled slightly, just enough to show the truth beneath it. But the greatest part of being underestimated is having the patience to let the right moment speak for you. I nodded, swallowing the lump rising in my throat. Silence isn't weakness, I said. Sometimes it's preparation. Hank smiled wide enough to show the youth still hidden in his age. Exactly. You created a world where others could rise. Tonight, that world lifted you right back. Noah leaned forward, resting his arms on the seat in front of him. Thank you, he told Hank, for standing by my mom all these years. I didn't stand by her, Hank said. I stood because of her. He pushed open his door and stepped out into the night. I'll give you all a moment, he said. Take your time. I joined him outside, breathing in the cold air. Noah and Tessa stayed in the car, giving us space. We walked a few steps toward the railing overlooking the water. The city lights reflected like a ribbon of coins tossed into the waves. Wishes and regrets floating side by side. You remind me of the captain, Hank said quietly. The way you hold steady when storms come. You make space for others to find their anchor. I clutch the ring beneath my dress. Some days, I still feel like I'm learning to stand without him. That's grief, he said. It doesn't vanish. It transforms. A seagull cried in the distance, its wings cutting through the moonlight. Hank placed a hand over mine, warm and steady. Your son needed tonight. He needed to remember who raised him. And your daughter-in-law. She needed hope that she can change. I breathed out, watching my sigh turn into mist. Do you think they will? I think they already have, he answered. We stood together in silence, two lives shaped by love that had gone on ahead of us. Then Hank gave my shoulder a gentle pat. Come on, he said. Let's get you home. As I walked back to the car, I glanced once more at the dark water. Henry would have loved this view. Ordinary, beautiful, and honest. I pressed the ring against my heart, letting the memory of his strength move through me. The night wasn't about winning. It wasn't about pride. It was about a son remembering, a daughter-in-law awakening, and a family choosing a better direction. We climbed into the car again. Noah reached for my hand. Tessa smiled through soft tears. The engine hummed to life. I brushed a stray tear from my cheek before it could fall. You two, I said, have a chance to build something real. They nodded, holding on to each other with a new kind of respect. As we pulled away from the overlook, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. Not victory, not vengeance, healing. By morning, the harbor was pewter under a low sky, and my phone hummed with attention I never seek. Messages stacked like containers. I opened the curtains and let light arrive before opening any of it. Light first, noise later. The first notification was from Jade. It held a link and 3 words. You should see. I tapped. Aiden's video, clipped and reposted by strangers, had climbed the city overnight. The room going quiet. Emilio walking to me. My son's face when respect took its seat. The captions weren't cruel. They were surprised. People didn't expect generosity to stand quietly and still be. Seen comments scrolled from servers, dock workers, nurses, teachers, and retired sailors who remembered Henry's handshake. They told stories of tables moved for influencers, while regulars quietly paid for someone else's meal. They told stories of kindness refused to be photographed. The city sounded like confession instead of gossip. A text arrived from the general manager of Victor's golf club. The board has removed his name from the annual donor plaque, pending review of recent conduct. We expect discretion. I smiled, not because names vanish, because character reappears. Tessa sent a screenshot from her church. Subject: conversation requested. The note was clear. The committee would like to meet regarding the tone of posts and the spirit of hospitality the congregation claims to value. If you are willing, we'd also like to hear from your mother-in-law about her experience at Vargas House. Tessa replied with one line, I would be grateful to learn. Another call came from a brand that sponsored Aiden's channel. The agent sounded like a man stepping off a moving train. We're pausing the partnership, he said, layering apologies between corporate phrases. The video didn't play the way he expected. Translation: the audience saw through performance. I thanked him for calling directly instead of hiding behind a release. People matter most when money gets nervous. Noah arrived mid-morning with bagels and a face that had slept, but not deeply. He set the food down and hugged me, the kind of embrace adult children save for the person who gave them a name. They're talking about you, he said, amazed and a little worried. They're talking about themselves, I answered. I'm just the mirror. We ate at the kitchen island where Henry once mapped relief deliveries with coffee cups and coins. Noah slid me his phone. Aiden had posted again. No jokes, no angles, no links. He wrote that he would take time off to reconsider why he wanted an audience. Then a line that made me cover my heart. I forgot that money is not a personality. I forgot to be kind. Do you think he means it? Noah asked. Today, yes, I said. Tomorrow is built one day at a time, Jade called. You good? I'm steady. Good. The ripple is bigger than dinner. The Port Workers Union wants you to speak next month about dignity on the job. A community college wants a scholarship in Henry's name for students in maritime logistics. The city paper asked for an interview. I told them you don't perform. They can attend the scholarship ceremony if they focus on the students. You know me. I do, she said. And I'm proud of you. After we hung up, I took Noah and Tessa to the Riverside Park, where Ada feeds pigeons at noon. She was there, wrapped in wool, eyes bright with the spark of someone who has outlived many storms. Sit, she commanded, patting the bench. Tell me what the city learned. That respect is heavier than shame, I said. Good, she replied. Let that settle in your bones. Tessa showed her the church email. Ada listened like a judge who preferred mercy but believed in truth. Show up, she said. Say less than you feel, do more than you promise, and stop when you've said enough. I can do that, Tessa whispered. Ada turned to Noah. And you? He swallowed. I want to be the son my father would recognize. Then you are, she said. Go home and take out the trash without being asked. Start there. We laughed. The ordinary world slipped its arm through ours. The city is complicated. Healing begins with chores done without applause. By afternoon, the wind picked up and the river flashed silver. I walked Noah and Tessa to the car. Aiden waited across the street, not hiding, not filming. He lifted a tentative hand. "Can we talk?" "Of course," I said. He looked smaller without his audience. "I thought I was teaching people about money," he said, "but I was teaching them about me, and I didn't like the lesson." "That's an education," I replied. "What do you want to teach now?" He stared at the ground. "How to say I'm sorry without turning it into a brand." "Start with your parents," I said. "Then start with yourself." He nodded, eyes wet, and pushed his phone deeper into his jacket as if he didn't trust his own hands. That evening, the golf club posted a neutral note about values and community standards. The church sent Tessa a calendar invitation. The brand removed Aiden's image from its homepage so quietly, only people who look for absence would notice. The restaurant posted a single photograph. The harbor at dusk, framed by the corner table, empty and lit by 2 candles. The caption read, simply, "Always reserved." I stood in my kitchen with the lights off and watched the city lights assert their soft dominion over the dark. My phone buzzed. Emilio. No words, just a picture of the plaque and a thumbs up. I sent back a heart and a line Henry used to say after storms passed. "See you at the window." The city had not crowned me anything. It had remembered itself. It had remembered what we build together lasts longer than whatever we buy alone. The next evening, the wind came cool from the harbor, clearing yesterday from the air. I spent it quietly arranging a few fresh flowers in a slender vase Henry once bought near Pier 7. Not to impress, to remember. As dusk approached, Noah called to say he and Tessa were already heading to Vargas' house. Their voices carried nerves and hope. I wore the same black dress as before. Not a disguise. The truth. Hank arrived and opened the door with his familiar nod. "Ready?" he asked. "As ever," I said. The harbor lights stretched over the water like a second sky. When the restaurant appeared, so did the memories, celebrations, promises. One last toast before deployment. Inside, Emilio greeted us at the entrance. No hug this time. Respect shifts when it becomes familiar. A hand to my shoulder was enough. "They're waiting at the window," he said. We walked to the glass where twilight painted the ocean purple and gold. Noah stood as I approached, his eyes softer. Tessa rose beside him, holding a folder close. Marisol brought a small wooden box and set it gently before me. "This might be meaningful," she said. Inside were photographs. Henry laughing in uniform. Our wedding by the pier. Noah on Henry's shoulders. Each one a heartbeat I had stored away. Noah watched as I traced the edge of a picture. "I didn't know how much of you I missed," he said. "You just grew facing another direction," I answered. "I want to turn back," he whispered. "Then turn." Tessa stepped forward. "I misjudged you," she said. "I thought refinement lived on the surface." "You learned otherwise," I replied. She handed me the folder. Inside was a page in her neat handwriting. "I want to be part of this family with integrity." 3 words followed. "Teach me courage." "You already started," I said. Marisol gestured toward the plaque on the wall. "Whenever you're ready." We stood and moved closer. The bronze gleamed under a spotlight. Captain Henry Caldwell, sailor, husband, builder of safe harbors. Noah's voice cracked. "That's Dad." "Yes," I said. My fingers traced the name like a prayer. "He'd be proud tonight," Emilio said. "He built strength that still stands." Noah wiped his eyes openly. "I forgot the lessons he gave me." "You remembered," I said. "That's enough." We sat again, chairs steadier now. Emilio returned with a tablet offering an inscription update. One line pulled at my heart, always home at the Caldwell window. Yes, I whispered. He sent the request. The printer clicked, approving memory. We ordered pasta, bread, and the simple salad Henry always claimed kept sailors fit. The food arrived warm and real. Conversation followed its lead. Less apology, more honesty. Noah asked what I missed most about Henry. I told him the quiet way he believed in people. Tessa asked how to build a life not measured by applause. Start with one brave choice a day, I said. I showed them a photo from the box, the three of us on the pier, Henry anchoring us both. He taught you to stand, I told Noah. Tonight, you did. He closed his eyes, letting grief breathe. I want to be like him. You are, I said. You just forgot your reflection. Dessert arrived, one slice of lemon cake with 3 forks. We shared it like we used to. Noah got frosting on his nose, and laughter replaced tension. Emilio returned once more. Thank you, he said to Noah and Tessa. Families find their way by choosing each other. Noah nodded. We will. Tessa reached for my hand. Thank you for staying at the table, she said. I never planned to leave, I replied. We stood. I touched the plaque again, the metal cool but steady. The ocean winked below. I'm still here, I whispered to Henry, and so are they. Noah slipped his arm around me. Tessa took the other. We walked toward the door together. The harbor night welcomed us like a promise kept. Hank waited outside beside the car, leaning against the door as though guarding the moment. When he saw Noah supporting me, he smiled. Look at that, he said. Storms passed, and the ship still stands. Noah laughed softly. I think I'm learning how to steer. Hank opened the back door. Good. Families need more navigators and fewer critics. Tessa hugged me before getting in. Not timid or polite. Real. I want to protect this family, she said. You already are, I told her. As I settled into the seat, Hank glanced at me in the mirror. You look lighter tonight. I am, I said. Grief shared becomes memory. Memory shared becomes strength. The drive home was calm. Noah asked if he could come by tomorrow to help in the garden. Tessa said she'd bring pastries. They planned a life instead of a defense. When we reached my house, they walked me to the door. The porch light glowed warm. Good night, Mom, Noah said, kissing my forehead. Thank you for everything. Good night, I replied. We're just getting started. Inside, I set the reservation card beside the vase. Always reserved, always ours. Morning sunlight spilled through my kitchen window, warming the tea kettle as it hummed its soft promise of comfort. I moved slowly, letting the quiet carry me. Healing doesn't arrive with trumpets. It sits gently beside you, asking nothing but presence. The doorbell rang. Not hurried, hopeful. I opened it to find Tessa standing alone, hands curled around a bakery box tied neatly with twine. Her eyes carried both fear and determination, like someone walking into a room where truth does not wait politely. May I come in? She asked. Of course. She stepped inside and removed her shoes without being asked, a small signal of respect. I led her to the dining table where the morning sun had laid out a warm path across the wood. I brought pastries, she said, setting the box down. Cinnamon and apple. I wasn't sure what you liked. Cinnamon is perfect, I said. She sat, smoothing her jeans the way people do when they're gathering courage. Her eyes lifted to mine. I know you're busy, but I needed to apologize without the noise of others. You already apologized, I reminded her gently. That was shame, she said. This is responsibility. She opened the box, offering comfort in the form of sugared dough. I grew up in a home where love was a reward you earned by impressing other people. My parents taught me that worthiness could be measured, tallied, proven. Her voice cracked. I thought that was normal. It was your normal, I said. Until now. She nodded, wiping her cheek. I want a different life, a kinder one. I just don't know how yet. You learn by choosing, I replied. One choice at a time. Her fingers fidgeted with the edge of the box. I want to earn your trust, and Noah's pride, and my own. I poured tea into 2 cups, letting the steam soften the air. Then start with honesty, I said. Tell me what scares you most. She took a breath. That I'll turn into my mother. I set my cup down, the porcelain quiet against the coaster. You already stepped off that path. How can you be sure? She whispered. Because fear asks permission, I said. Courage shows up. Tears fell freely now. I want to belong here, she whispered. Not because of Noah, because of us. I stood, retrieving a slim folder from a drawer. Inside were documents I had prepared months ago but never shared. An update to my estate plans. Plans for stewardship, not inheritance. I placed the folder in front of her. I made this long before dinner, I said. It outlines how the foundation and properties will be managed when I can no longer do so. There are roles included, ones that require integrity, discretion, and compassion. She didn't reach for it. She just stared, disbelief widening her eyes. You trust me that much? I trust who you are becoming, I replied. Not the person shaped by fear, but the woman finding her way back to herself. She finally opened the folder. Her breath wavered as she scanned the first page. Executor, division of duties, community advisory role. Her fingers trembled. There are conditions, I said gently. She blinked, overwhelmed. What conditions? Boundaries, I answered. Not the kind meant to control, the kind meant to protect. She looked up, cautious but willing. I'm listening. I sat back. You honor your marriage not by pleasing your parents, but by supporting your husband. You protect the next generation from arrogance by showing them humility. And you treat every person we help through the foundation as if their dignity is as fragile as your own. Her chin quivered. I want that. I want to be worthy of that. Worthiness isn't proven, I said. It's practiced. She closed the folder gently. I will practice. I nodded once. There's one more thing. Her posture tightened. Anything. You will speak with your parents, I said. And you will not punish them. Growth isn't a weapon, it's an invitation. She breathed out, shaky. I don't know if they'll listen. You're not responsible for their listening, I replied. Only your speaking. She let that truth settle. We sipped our tea for a while, letting quiet version of ourselves grow roots. When she finished the last bite of pastry, I handed her a small envelope. Inside was a simple card, printed with a message Henry once told me. Respect begins at home, even when home has to be rebuilt. Tessa pressed the card to her heart. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing more in me than I saw in myself. You earned the chance, I said. Take it. Footsteps sounded on the porch. The door creaked open and Noah stepped inside wearing gardening gloves and a hopeful grin. Dirt smudged his cheek, evidence of effort before request. I started pulling weeds, he said. I wanted to help. You did help, Tessa said, wiping his cheek clean with her thumb. You showed up. He kissed her forehead, and something unspoken passed between them, partnership finally finding its footing. He turned to me. Mom, can we plant tonight? I got the soil ready. We can, I said. Flowers or herbs? Both, he answered. Roots and growth. Tessa stood, shoulders no longer hunched. I'll clean up the dishes, she offered, gathering cups without ceremony or performance. I watched her move around the kitchen like someone learning a language she should have always spoken. Belonging. She returned to the table, slipping the estate folder into her bag. Not hidden, but held with purpose. I'll do right by this, she said firmly. I know you will, I replied. We stepped outside, the garden still damp from last night's mist. Noah knelt by the flower bed, hands deep in soil. Tessa knelt beside him. They worked in tandem, laughter rising between them like seedlings catching light. I stood on the porch for a moment, just watching. Families break quietly. They heal the same way. When the sun dipped low, I joined them, knees in the dirt, air filled with the scent of rosemary and hope. The harbor wind carried the distant sound of ships readying for departure. Change felt near, but not rushed. By the time the stars arrived, the garden had new life, small plants that would need tending, daily reminders of commitment over comfort. Noah walked me to the porch. Thank you, Mom, he said, for not giving up on us. I never could, I replied. Love doesn't quit. It holds. Tessa's voice floated across the yard. Dinner tomorrow at the Caldwell window? Yes, I said. Tomorrow and every tomorrow that deserves a table. The moon climbed higher as I watched them stand together, silhouettes strong in the silver light. Respect begins at home, and home was being rebuilt. Evening came soft and steady, as if the city preferred to breathe with us. I wore the same black dress, no longer a disguise, now a promise. Noah and Tessa met me at the entrance, hand in hand. Emilio waited by the host stand with a warm smile. Your table is ready, he said. We walked to the glass. The harbor rolled under dusk. Candles flickered at the Caldwell window beside 2 sprigs of rosemary from yesterday's garden. A small card sat beneath the water glass. Always reserved. I touched it and thought of Henry knotting lines in bad weather, patient hands teaching patience to mine. Marisol set 3 menus down and then, grinning, took them back. I already know, she said. Let me bring you the good things. She slipped away. Noah cleared his throat, then laughed at himself. I rehearsed a speech, he admitted. He stood anyway, hands shaking. Mom, I forgot who raised me. I forgot what strength looks like. Thank you for letting me remember without punishment. He turned to Tessa. Thank you for choosing our family over our image. He sat before his knees, gave up, and wiped his eyes. Tessa squeezed his hand and faced me. I promised myself this morning to live like someone my future children can trust. Please hold me to it. I reached across and squeezed back. Gladly. Dinner came in small waves, fresh pasta with lemon, the way Henry loved it. A simple salad that tasted like honesty, bread hot enough to persuade butter. Between bites, we planned small things that build a life. Coffee by the window on Sundays, birthdays at the harbor, a place at our table for Hank and Ada. Tessa will schedule service days with the foundation. Noah will spend Saturdays on scholarship interviews. Emilio approached with a bottle saved for this view. He caught each of our eyes before he poured. To people who keep their promises, he said. Behind us, the kitchen printer whirred, a sound that had become part of our story. Marisol returned with a frame wrapped in brown paper. From the staff, she whispered. Inside was a photograph from years ago. Henry and me at this window, his arm around my shoulder, my face turned to the water. I pressed the glass until the ache in my throat softened into warmth. Noah rose again, steadier now. May I thank the house? Emilio nodded, and the room's hum lowered. Thank you for how you treat my mother, he said. Thank you for how you treat each other. This city is kinder than it thinks. A quiet ripple moved through the tables. He sat and breathed like a man who finally found the right altitude. We ate slowly and let the evening set our pace. Tessa asked about mentors for students headed to the docks, about internships that lead to real wages, about saying no to attention that turns purpose into performance. I gave her the rule Henry and I used. If a decision helps the quiet person at the edge of the room, it is probably the right one. She saved it and promised to read it on stubborn days. In the doorway, I noticed Aiden. Hat in hand, phone forgotten, he waited rather than cross the room. I walked to him. "Thank you for not filming," I said. He nodded. "I'm learning to see without turning everything into proof." He handed me a folded note for his parents. "I'm starting with kitchen table apologies," he said. "No captions." I squeezed his shoulder. "Good choice." He left as quietly as he came. When I returned, dessert had arrived. Lemon cake with 3 forks. Noah lifted his fork. "To ordinary Tuesdays," Tessa added, "to choosing each other when it isn't glamorous." I said, "To windows that stay open when storms pass through." We ate until the candles became small moons. Marisol brought our coats, though the night was gentle. She tucked a familiar envelope beside my plate. I slid the card into my canvas wallet where the edges fray like a beloved book. The necklace warmed against my skin, Henry's ring steady as a heartbeat. We stood. The room did not applaud. It breathed with us. We walked the aisle together, 3 people deciding to build a house out of choices. At the glass, I touched the plaque once more. Sailor, husband, builder of safe harbors. I whispered, "We're all right." The water answered in soft taps against the pier. Outside, the air carried the clean smell of a day that did not waste itself. Hank waited by the curb, smiling like a man who knows the route home. Emilio lifted a hand from the doorway. Marisol nodded. At the car, Noah paused and turned back to the window. He spoke not to the room or the city, but to the man who taught him to stand. "Dad, thank you for trusting Mom with this world. We'll carry it the same way." He looked at me. "We will do the work." We drove away slowly, not to prolong the night, but to let it fit. Streetlights stitched a path across the hood, like a seam that would not break. In the mirror, I saw what we restored. Not reputation, not spectacle, but steadiness. Tessa rested her head on Noah's shoulder. He covered her hand and watched the road as if the future could be driven gently and still arrive. If you are listening, and the world has tried to measure your worth by a receipt or a chair at the wrong end of a table, hear me. You do not need the loud things. Choose the true things. Save a seat for the person you are becoming. Keep a window for tomorrow. Let the room learn from your quiet, and let your quiet be brave enough to stay. The bay lights winked like patient stars above still water. We slipped into the night that belonged to us, and the harbor kept its promise.